Funding is provided by a grant from New York State Senator Catherine M. Young, representing Western New York's 57th District with a local office in Olean. Chautauqua Sunrise is made possible by a grant from Fredonia Place, a continuing care retirement community providing dignity in a modern luxury environment. From the Access Channel 5 studios in Mayville, it's Chautauqua Sunrise. Chautauqua Sunrise is hosted by Doc Hamels and supported by the award-winning volunteers at Access Channel 5. Continuing the traditions of Senior Report, we are here to share local news, colorful interviews, and events of interest to everyone. Chautauqua Sunrise is broadcast live Saturday mornings each week, countywide, from 9 to 10 a.m. Join us by calling in live, emailing us, or checking out our social media. And now, from the Channel 5 studios, it's Chautauqua Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Chautauqua Sunrise. This is our very first show of its kind here in Studio 4A in Mayville, New York, in the studios of Access Cable 5. Good morning, and I am Doc Hamels, and I'm just so happy that you're all here with us this morning. Pull up a chair, get your coffee or tea or whatever your beverage is, kick back. We have a great show coming up for you this morning. And just want to let you know, we've got some little bit of new backgrounds here that you're going to see throughout the show. And I want to thank Chris Burt and Randy Burt and Jeff Zook and Chuck Kelsey for working on some of the new look to the show and the new beginning of the show, the introduction. It was a great team effort. So welcome to the show, and we're hopefully going to have a good long run with the show for many, many years. Well, it was a short summer. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We had the shortest spring, I think, and now we have the shortest summer, but I guess it's coming back tomorrow. Boy, yesterday was cool, but what are you going to do? It was a nice, beautiful day yesterday, and the crew and I, we were down in Mayville. Well, we are in Mayville, just down the street, and we covered the Mayville parade, and it was a great time. And if you missed it, not a problem. We filmed it, and you'll be able to see it again and again and again and again forever, because it's going to be on YouTube eventually. But from what I'm told, they're going to rebroadcast it throughout the week as well here at Access 5. The Chautauqua Sunrise was a little bit of an idea that I came up with when I was asked to take over the show. And I don't know if you know that much about me, and so I just thought I'd give you a quick little background. A lot of people say, well, you know, we know who he is. Well, you may know me from a little bit, but I've got some parts that maybe you don't know about. A lot of people may not know that I've actually lived in Chautauqua County almost all my adult life, but I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, over on Greenfield Street near the zoo area. I always tell people when I was growing up that we would be sitting in our classroom at St. Mark's Elementary School there, and you could hear the polar bears roaring when they opened up the cages and that on a nice spring day. So that's how close we were to the zoo. Then I went on to Canisius High School and had a great time there, and then Buff State, got my degree in special education, left the county at that point, and that's where I've been ever since 1974 down here in the county. I love it here. I was special ed teacher for BOCES, then moved up through the ranks of administration and so forth, and got married. Barbara and I have been married over 32 years. We got 4 great kids. During that time, then I went on for my master's degree and my administration degree at Fredonia State. And the reason why they call me Doc, there's a good reason. I actually am Dr. Hamels. I have a PhD in education, and that was about 18 years ago through Walden University. And that title has kind of stuck with me. Even my students used to call me Doc. So, and you can do the same. Also, finished up being a school superintendent at Ripley Central School and retired some years now. It's hard to believe how long it's been. And since then, I've gotten back to my roots of music, as many of you know, and I'm on various boards of directors and chairmans and so forth, and just living a big life in retirement. And I hope that those of you that are approaching retirement age, you can do the same, because there's so much fun things to do out there and do all the things that you always wanted to do when you were busy doing the job and raising your family and so forth. So anyways, that's just a thumbnail sketch. From time to time, you'll hear little stories about my life, just like Reed used to tell during the senior report of his, except mine aren't quite as crazy as his were. Okay, there's a whole bunch of things to share with you today, so I want to move right ahead. Next, let's see, Friday, at the Chautauqua Golf Course, you've got the Westfield Memorial Hospital Golf Tournament coming up. There's still time, from what I'm told, that you can sign up, and you just call Patty DePalma over at the hospital and she'll get you hooked up. If you love music, especially alternative and fusion and all kinds of styles of music, Blue Heron Music Festival is going on right now. Next Saturday, yours truly and my partner Bill Drello, we're going to be performing at the Italian Festival over in St. James Parish, over in Jamestown. They have the world's largest tent, I swear. This thing can hold like a zillion people, and all kinds of great food. And if you haven't tried some of the Italian delights over there, there's carduna and they got tripe. I know it doesn't sound appealing at first, but you gotta try it. It's awesome. And there's sausage and all kinds of great foods there, and lots of desserts. Also, I'm told there's an antique show at Easton Hall on, let me see what my notes say, July 19th and 20th. Chautauqua County right now, especially July, it's just bursting with activity. So if you're visiting for the first time, or you're an old hand at Chautauqua County, lots of great things to do. Arts and Crafts Festival right down at McClure Park in Westfield is going to be at the last weekend of July, and Bill and I will be doing a little performance there for everybody. Seniors, there's a senior picnic through the Office of the Aging on July 18th from 10 to 2 at Midway Park. $6, a great barbecue, and there are going to be games and music. Also, I want to send out a special happy birthday, 2 birthdays. First, I'll take the most important one. I see here in the paper that Betty Thompson of Heritage Village in Gary, New York is 102. Happy birthday, Betty. Awesome. My brother and I have a challenge that we're going to try to get to over 100, and he's younger than I am. And I tell this story all the time. You know how brothers are very competitive, and we're a year apart. And so he says, well, he was going to be 100. And I said, well, I want to be 101. And he looked at me and says, he's trying to beat me, you know. And I said, well, I just want to be at your birthday party. So he allowed me to get 1 year on him so I can attend his 100th birthday party. My dad and I have a deal. He's at 91, and when he turns 100, we're all going to get tuxedos, and the girls are going to get gowns, and we're going to do a special happy birthday all over Buffalo somewhere. We're going to plan a big party. So, Dad, you heard it right. My dad watches the show every week. I send him a link to it. So, anyways, it's still a deal. The United States of America is 238 years old plus 1 day. It's hard to believe. And yet, when you travel about the world, we're still a pretty young country. Some of these other countries are hundreds and thousands of years old. But anyways, hang in there, America. We're still in it, and we're getting better every day. Okay, now, something important to share with you. We have some new opportunities for you as our viewers to be in touch with us, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to pop up a screen here, and there it comes. And you can Twitter us, and there's the information right there, or you can Facebook us anytime. And Chris Burt is on our in our engineer room, and he's monitoring all of our information. And as things pop up, he'll send me information on my iPad here. So if you want to send a comment or you have an announcement, if you're shy, you don't want to call in, that's fine. But you also can call us There's another screen here. It'll pop up here in a second. This is amazing, isn't it? Look at that. You can email us or you can call us at 753-5225, and there's the email address. These are all ways that you can contact us. Now, you might say, well, it's Saturday morning and I'm not watching this till Sunday. Email us and we'll make the announcement that you may have or something you want to share or comment, and we'll share it the next show, okay? So let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if there's something you want to tell us about, an event coming up or a birthday and so forth. And we'll get it on the air. It's our pleasure. All right. I think at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short PSA, and I'm going to invite one of our guys here in the studio. He's going to come on and he's going to give us an update from the Roswell Ride for Cancer from last week. And they're still walking and upright. So we're going to have a little commercial break, and we're going to bring Jeff Zook on here in a minute. Or two.
The United States Air Force has a proud history of leading our nation in embracing diversity. We've been reaching new heights for years by understanding it's our individual experiences which make us strong. You can share in this success by seeking opportunities to learn and grow as a member of a diverse team. We are the world's greatest Air Force, not because of what we do, but who we are. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
Hey, just some updated information here from Chris. The parade will be rebroadcast here on Access 5, 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. daily this week. So if you want to catch that. Hey, this is not Jeff Zook. This is his brother Galen. And good morning, Galen. Welcome to the show. Where'd you come from? You're not Jeff. You look a lot alike, though.
Well, thank God I'm not Jeff, because people are nuts, you know. I don't know who's more nuts. I rode 65 miles. He only did 30. So.
And you had a pink beard. We saw that.
I had a pink beard.
We have proof of that.
I had a pink beard, and I had pink mohawks on my helmet. And if you want to see what I look like, you can go to rideforroswell.org and find the pictures. The picture page that comes up, I am the fourth one on the right, and right on the top row. So I was quite the celebrity. Everyone loved the beard and the pink mohawks. It was a great time.
So how many riders? I heard
there was
8,000 or something like that.
How many?
8,000?
There was 8,100.
Well,
and they raised over $4.3 million just on that ride alone. And Roswell not only has that bike ride, but they do a lot of other fundraisers throughout the year, concerts and different things in the Buffalo area. It was a great success again. Jeff and I are definitely planning on doing it again next year. So if you know us, save your nickels and dimes. We're going to be out asking and soliciting for donations as soon as we possibly can. But it's a great event. There's not only is there riders needed, there are thousands of volunteers that are needed. And if you don't ride bike, you can volunteer and sign up as a virtual rider, raise your funds, and then still go over and volunteer. So you're actually accomplishing two goals for the ride. So I mean, it's just something to think about if you're able to. And,
I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
Jeff and I had a long talk yesterday morning about what you all did, and he told me that it wasn't just $4 million that you raised, but there's a lot of matching grants. Can you speak to that? Because
no.
he said it. Okay, then I'll give you what I understand to be the case. Is in many cases, every dollar that you raise, there's often some organization that will match that, or a foundation. And I think by the time we did all the mathematics, actually $4 million raised something like $50 million or something like that. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, I can't really speak on that. I haven't really researched any of that stuff. So, but it is a great event. It's a lot of fun. I got to talk to one of the ride leaders that were there, and the communication system that they have in place there in case of accidents, and how between all the ride leaders, all the policemen and fire departments and ambulances and emergency services, basically the communication system, they go into the Buffalo Police Station and take over a whole floor to set up this communication system, and they're in contact within radio contact with all the different precincts of and areas that the ride goes into. There is people out on the course that are in communication with the people back at the police department. It's actually really an amazing accomplishment of communication. But the big thing is, and some people have mentioned that they have heard this, that next year will be the first year that they're planning to do a Canada ride.
Oh.
Which will start at Roswell Park, ride into Canada, and then end back at University of Buffalo.
So what was the level of excitement and what was going on? I mean, is people just like milling around, or is it, can you feel energy that's going on there? What's it feel like?
There's definitely an energy that's going on, and everyone's there for the same thing, and for the same reason. And there's a camaraderie that you get out on the course, and obviously I ride faster than some people ride faster than me, and sometimes you just slow down, you talk to people, and you hear some of the stories. And one of the great things that they do is at the beginning of each ride, each group, they'll acknowledge if there's any cancer survivors in the group, and they'll raise their hand and be acknowledged. Also, as you come into the finish line on the road, they have painted the names of all the cancer survivors that are riding in the ride.
Oh my gosh.
Which is pretty nice. And I had the privilege to ride in the Peloton, which is it's a group of 225 people. We started at Roswell Park, right at the hospital, rode 12 miles up to UB Stadium, and during the opening ceremonies, you get to ride into the stadium.
Yeah, I saw pictures of you. That looked really impressive.
That was a lot of fun. That was everything I expected. The most touching moment for me is as we lined up to leave Roswell Park, they pass out cards with an actual patient's name that's in the hospital. And Mayor Brian Brown was there, and numerous other celebrities were there. But just before you leave, they ask you to hold the card up. They put as many patients to the roadside of the hospital as they can. They had some that came out to the roadside, and what you do is you hold your card up towards the hospital, and you have a moment of silence for the patients, and offer up any prayers that you want, or do that. To me, that was the most touching, and it actually was the most emotional part of the whole thing for me.
So you had you, and you had Randy and your brother Jeff. Was there any other family members or friends with you?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
And another neat thing they do is right outside of the on the road where you line up, they paint your name on the road.
Oh wow!
As a Peloton rider, and that's to be a Peloton rider. That's not just they put your name in a hat and pull out. You have to raise $1,000 by a certain date, and you have to be one of the first 225 people of the ride to raise the $1,000.
Well, congratulations. That's quite a feat. So, anything else? Because we're going to roll along here.
No, I just encourage people to continue to donate if you like to donate. They are accepting donations all the way up till August 1st. And be thinking about, and those people of faith, keep it in your prayers. And
okay, great.
And consider what you could do for the ride next year.
Okay. Galen, Zook, thanks for coming by and giving us an update. I know that Randy made it. He didn't pass out this year or fall down or anything like that. He looks pretty good. Jeff was in great spirits when he got back. So
I almost died. I was dead. I wasn't going another mile.
I don't know how you did it, to tell you the truth. Okay,
lots of practice.
Thanks a lot for coming by. And folks, that's a great program and great opportunity to support folks that are suffering from cancer. So thanks for dropping by, Galen. Okay, let's move right along here now. And I was thinking about who I wanted for my first guest for Chautauqua Sunrise, and a couple of folks that have been around the studio from as long as I can remember, since the time I've been working with the Senior Report. Every once in a while they'll pop in and they'll share some information. One of them has been a guest commentator from time to time. I know the other was on the show from time to time with Reed. So I want to introduce and welcome both Karen and Roy Harvey to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Don.
And
thank you.
I was thinking about where I would start with this whole thing. And the other day when Vicki Wessling was on the show, I introduced you, and I wasn't exactly sure how to introduce you because you're sort of have a broad experience that we'll get to here in a little bit. But you said journalist, and I thought, wow, journalist. What does that mean? And so, I write and I have a column, so I guess I'm a columnist because that's what I write. But it doesn't have any real meat to it sometimes. It's more kind of like fun stuff, and it's maybe storytelling. But we'll get to what a journalist is first. But I wanted to have you on the show because you're so interesting, and I like to talk to interesting people. So who's going to start? Karen?
Roy's going to start.
Karen's going to start.
Oh, you can tell they're married. So Roy, tell me about yourself and what brings you here today and all that, your background.
Okay. We started sort of together something like 1962, so our histories are commingled. Mm-hmm. But University of Florida, University of South Florida, University of Washington, BA in Comparative Literature, and then Iowa, University of Iowa, Master of Fine Arts. Teacher there was Vonnegut. Karen, my advisor, was Vonnegut, and had many, many writers because it was a writer's workshop.
Did you say Vonnegut? Like
Kurt
Vonnegut?
Like Vonnegut.
Chariot of the Gods?
Yeah.
The guy that's on Alien?
Yeah, I went there because...
You know him?
Well, yeah. He's now
Did you ever shake hands with him?
Quite a bit.
Shake hands with me. I want to see. I shook hands with the guy that knows Kurt Vonnegut.
We last saw him about a year before he died, so we sort of kept up a little bit. But basically, he was one of the many instructors, and I went there because Vonnegut was there, because I had read some of his short stories, because he's only writing short stories at the time, although Breakfast at Champions was written and a few others. Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting experience, but we sort of shifted into journalism away from theater and writing at Iowa. Mm-hmm. And
so what's the difference?
Well, Roy had, as his many instructors, included Nelson Algren and Jose Donoso, and besides Vonnegut, Theodore Rutke. But Vonnegut took a liking to him and was his advisor and advised him to go into journalism because his creative writing was good, but his critical writing was extremely
well. Actually, it was the Vietnam War. Mm. The Vietnam War drove a lot of us into reporting or attempting to report or find a place that we could report, and that was the underground media at that time. And then we sort of shifted into a real media, CBS.
When you say underground media?
Well, it was Alaska Free Press was one, but the
Middle Earth. It was called Middle Earth at the University of Iowa. It was already visible that most cities had just one newspaper, not two competing newspapers. So if you wanted to get an opinion out, and that's what our First Amendment rights guarantee us, is a good diversity of viewpoints, we had to publish our own or go to the people who were publishing independently.
Right. So
independent media.
So that's what you're referring to as the underground, or these smaller
independent media.
Okay,
right.
Independent.
That was while we were students, though, and after graduation, and we went to Alaska. I think that was the first job, CBS, and Karen worked for United Press International as photographer there. And after about a year of reporting on essentially what was going on in Alaska for CBS, it was a different kind of animal then because we flew our film down to the lower 48 and we got our film news.
What were you
up.
filming in Alaska? Like wildlife?
Well, wildlife, fires, Indians,
plane crashes,
domestic.
Many plane crashes,
Yeah.
lots of
So
military
you were
activity.
sort of like the, I don't want to say stringer because that has a
Karen was a stringer. I was staff.
Okay.
But we just really missed the U.S. There was a lot going on. This was 1969, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Karen took a job at the Seattle Times, the first female photographer there. And and I was in the radio at the time in Seattle. That was my background. And then we shifted to Portland, Oregon, where Karen was a full-time staff, first woman on the Oregonian. And after about 5 years there, we shifted to Chicago, and Karen was on the Chicago Tribune staff, the first woman full-time.
You're a lot of firsts, Karen.
Yeah, it's about at least several. And I worked for the Black Daily newspaper, the Chicago Defender, for several years, and then my boss, then I shifted to the State's Attorney's Office where I became an investigator and then shifted away when Daly became mayor, followed the mayor into the city and became a television reporter, or television producer for the city.
So you were on the other side of the camera then?
Yeah, right. And we were trying to explain, help explain the city and what, it was doing and what it could do. And I did that for about 10 years. Well, Karen worked at the Tribune during that time, and I was a writer on the Tribune with Karen as a
it
feature
sounds like
writer.
you had lots of things going on all the time.
Yeah, it was essentially trying to find a way to tell the stories that we were not seeing told, and that was part of Karen's. Actually, Karen has a few photographs that she's put together and gives you a taste of what she did at the Defender.
Before we get there, what drives someone like you to do all this? Why do you do it?
Well, you enjoy your retirement, right?
Right.
We are retired and we're enjoying it immensely by addressing the things that we had no opportunity to do because we watched over 30 years a kind of censorship, self-censorship, and neglect of many issues that should have been addressed by the press, and the press was not
important
doing
enough, or it was too political, or it was a hot issue, and so
exactly.
they were just,
or they waited till it was too late. I mean, you look at Enron, and Enron for 6 years was the greatest business of all time because there was no one to check what was being reported. But Enron had a lot of problems all the way along. It was a fraudulent operation, and no one looked at it.
Where do you drive this need to do this? I mean, is it part of your upbringing? It just happened to be like for instance, I grew up in the 60s and 70s as well, and there was this feeling that the big companies were, like you said, weren't telling the whole story and that sort of thing. But then I went into education and I took a different road. But was there some point in time that says, I need to do this?
I think so, really. I think the Vietnam War sort of catapulted us into journalism because we saw this grotesque thing happening. We saw 50,000 of our own youth, our peers, killed in that war. We saw devastation of Vietnam, and we didn't see a press that was actually addressing these problems. Well, we saw, for example, Karen, when she went to the Tribune, it was still owned essentially by the heirs of McCormick. It was a Patterson family, and suddenly it switched. You could see the whole switch away from news-driven newspapers, news-driven at all, into corporate-driven and profit-driven. So there was a huge split, and we were sort of, at least I was, for many, many years, and one of my jobs was I created a job to interview people, so it was a host of a program, book show, and I'd interviewed about 250 people before actually leaving the thing, and you could just see that many of the journalists were leaving journalism, leaving newspapers and trying to address the problem with books, because news had been essentially taken over by profit, and that happened right while Karen was there.
I want to go back to the Vietnam thing for a little bit, and you said something that struck a chord with me. I've talked to a lot of Vietnam veterans over the years, and when they came home, They were very confused, they were angry, they were not celebrated in many cases. And I had a heart-to-heart talk with them because I did not serve. All right, I was right on the edge. I was in college, and I was just waiting for I had a low number. I was just waiting, and then we had this conversation. It goes something like this: we were told that you guys over there were doing all these atrocities, and then you're telling us that you were forced to do these things, or it wasn't true, or whatever the case was. And so what you're telling me is exactly what happened, was that there were voices like yours that were getting the real story out. And so when these guys came back, they were mad at me. They were mad at me because I didn't serve, that I was this liberal guy that was saying end the war, and all this stuff. And we didn't realize at the time that we were all set up. They were being considered as criminals, in the military because of things that were happening, which they weren't. And we were being criticized by them because we were not seeing things correctly and creating all this illusion that they were terrible people. And so we weren't told the truth until many, many years later.
Yeah, well, they were expendable. There's a much bigger picture. They were just pawns in a much bigger operation that made a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why most of us guys here at the Chautauqua Sunrise Access 5, that we're driven as volunteers to do what we do here in Chautauqua County. We want people to come to the station to voice their opinions. I once told somebody recently, I don't have strong opinions on a lot of things, but ones I do have strong opinions, but I like to hear everybody else's opinion. So this is why we do what we do, is we want to hear each other and talk and listen and so forth. You said Karen had some pictures.
Yeah, and then I can talk over them a little bit about my background.
So why would
and these are strictly
They're
Chicago
just from
Tribune,
Chicago
right?
Tribune.
Okay, so maybe we can pop these up.
They don't include very many, but...
okay, and then when they come up, you can tell us about them.
Yeah, because I'm a native of this area. I was born... I'm fourth generation this area. My father went to Cornell, and I went to grade school in Frewsburg, a one-room schoolhouse.
That was the mayor of Chicago.
He died in office, yes. These are just
These are your
pictures
photos?
that I have taken over the years,
Largely
yes.
front page stuff.
Nice.
So anyway, I went to grade school in Frewsburg, one-room schoolhouse, and Faulkner and Celeron. That's the mafia. The mafia gentleman decided to attack
Joseph
me.
Iupa Doves.
The Doves Iupa, right. And there's the crash of the 191, 270.
So you were right on site for that?
Yeah, 271 died in that crash, and those were the families of them. This is the last nuclear power plant to be put in. It's Braidwood. Those are the guys putting it together. This is flu shots, which killed everybody, as a matter of fact. Coal waste did a lot of things on energy, whether it was nuclear or coal in those days. I went to high school at Southwestern High School. Southwestern, from there I met Roy, and we both attended University of Washington and the Writers' Workshop. What a great time that was.
While I was at the University of Washington, Karen was at Sorbonne in Paris, going to school.
Paris? Oh, nice. That's yours?
Yep, all mine. A lot of covers and a lot of picture pages and ski races. And
it's a Birkebeiner in Wisconsin.
It was a good time. We
nice color.
Witnessed a lot of changes.
That looks like Randy right there.
It does. It does, and creative, a little creative work. But,
it's Bill Walton.
Oh, all right, sure.
The Trailblazers, right? And
look at that.
Karen sort of switched to nature photography after a little bit, actually, after being
picture
after
editor.
doing a lot of news work.
But we did stories together. We did a lot of stories together on clear cutting of the forests, the virgin forests in British Columbia. We've done stories on various medical situations, whether it's heart transplants, kidney, liver transplants. We've done stories on local sustainable agriculture that is extremely important to us now, and that and the whole medical spectrum of health. We continue to do that today. We work on issues that we think are important for this area. One was the change over to deregulation of our utilities and our banks. That was our first film operation here in this area, was the NRG Energy Company that took over from the previous owners. That was upside down in a biplane. That was fun. And then following that, the emergency room was going to be closed in Westfield. And
That's
so
clear cutting in British Columbia.
Right.
So we pursued the very generous time that was given to us by all the firemen and the emergency crews, who explained that without that emergency room in Westfield, they would not be able to produce what they needed for, you know, to save lives, because the lives were.
These are outstanding photos. I got to ask you a question now. Like we were talking when I first introduced you, is there's different types of writers, and Roy's already talked about different types of writing that you've done. How would you define journalist? You know, what goes into it? I mean, I don't think people realize when they read a story, especially that's as critical, the work that you do, that's so in depth and so forth. What does it take to do an article?
Well, to back up a little bit, you know, been a big. One of the things I observed in interviewing many of the writers that came through the Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times and the other various newspapers was they were brought through journalism schools, many of them. And what was really interesting about Chicago was it had a city news bureau, which was a training facility, and you worked hard and you actually understood how to write a story, how to write a lead, and to get the story. The new system, essentially, journalism schools, in my view, are essentially turning out people who can function within a newspaper that's owned by a corporation, and they know how to self-censor.
Okay.
Self-censor is the big thing. And our sort of perspective with regard to journalism is that an informed populace is a necessary thing for a continuing democracy, a republic.
Sure.
And what we have now is essentially a media that's controlled on the order of five major corporations control our media. They dictate all of our news virtually. They dictate what we are allowed to see, and what we think. And so what you have is a media that's sort of complicit with building up heroes, largely sports, but also public figures and media, entertainment, and also villains. And what we had with Gaddafi, I mean, you recall that one.
Right.
They turned this man, who was probably one of the better leaders in North Africa, absolutely no question, and turned him a villain overnight, destroyed his country, and produced a nation that's now destabilizing the rest of the Middle East. Where's the media on that? The media sort of goes along with the destruction of Libya, the murder of Gaddafi, and then we had Iraq, the same thing, with regard to
sort of a pattern.
It's a pattern. Hussein was the enemy. We can destroy him. It doesn't matter if the whole country. Similarly with Assad in Syria. Similarly with Putin in Russia. You know, right on down the line. And that's essentially the negligent role of the media to actually inform the people. So our sort of, you know, it's outrageous to actually try something, because snowshoe films is all we really have, plus, you know, YouTube. But that's our objective, to essentially provide a counter voice, because many of these people that came back, just like in Vietnam from Iraq, you know, they told stories over and over and over. I'm no longer the monster I once was. You know, that's the feeling that they have, and if they can work through that, they can become normal human beings. Otherwise, they just drug themselves, and you know, crime and the rest.
Okay, take a breath. Folks, you are watching Chautauqua Sunrise. I'm Doc Hamels. I'm with friends here, Roy and Karen Harvey, and we're talking about their careers in journalism and getting the story that isn't being told by larger corporations. You can call in if you have a question, and that number is 753-5225. You can Twitter us, you can email me, you can text us, you can do a zillion different things. And as I'm talking, they'll pop these numbers up and so forth. Feel free to express your opinions. You hear that we're doing that right here and now. Karen, let's go to you. If I were to say to you, what was the number one story that you covered that you say, this was my best piece?
That's hard.
Well, all right, what was your favorite one?
Favorites? Well, I think medical stories, medical breakthroughs were very positive. You often do negative things. You're very often doing murders and crimes.
For example,
and
Gacy. She
John
stood
Wayne
out.
Gacy, I had to stand in the minus 30 degrees while they brought out 33 bodies of young men.
You were there?
I was there. I was
Oh
the
my gosh.
one who covered it. And they said, you are the female face. You can go to the families and ask them, how do they feel now that their boy has been uncovered and this terrible crime has been exposed? So I didn't, those were very, very difficult times
I'm sure.
to experience. And then to go to a plane crash and witness what happened at those sites, that was not good. To see police officers and firefighters fighting terrible tragedies and getting injured themselves was difficult. But when I was able to do positive things such as, the little boy in the pictures that had his a liver transplant that saved his life, the brain surgeries that brought people back from epileptic seizures to positive things, and other times I'd get to do the opera and sports. Soccer was great, and we always enjoyed that. But
Are you watching the World Cup right now?
we are.
We don't have television, actually, so we're not.
So
doing
yeah,
much
you
of that.
got to read the
Right,
reports.
right,
It's
right.
getting exciting now.
Right. And Roy and I did projects together which were great, and they were things that exposed what was happening to our environment, which we felt was extremely important and still do. So that those kinds of things are good memories. I also took my children on the job, and they participated in, unfortunately, terrible things like plane hijackings where we couldn't get near, but they were in the car with me while I was filming. And it was a real privilege to witness history. As a witness to history was a privilege, and I found it enlightening, but I also saw so many changes over the years. The Chicago Tribune had 12 bureaus worldwide to report and show the people of Chicago, and we were the third biggest paper in the country, what was happening. But that was all eliminated for the sake of profit. And I would call what they produce now junk food news. It's more for entertainment, it's for lulling people into quiet, and we have a disparity of wealth in this country that's becoming quite noticeable, and we see that the news is pitched for the top level, not for the people. There's nothing in the best interests of our public, our majority of our population, to begin to understand the forces that are working around them.
I know that even with the local newspaper, there's fewer and fewer reporters, and they have stringers. They pay them so much a column or whatever. I know that the cost of whatever the paper production is, putting out the stories is getting more costly, and now more and more folks are at home writing their stories and just sending them into the editor's office and so forth. Can you kind of describe what it would be like to cover a major story and the time that's involved and checking your sources? I mean, it's pretty complicated being a journalist, I would think.
Roy did a series that took him through the files and through the records and through the many libraries, and it exposed some of the gang operations in Chicago. And it took a great deal of time. What did that involve?
Well, it was a story on the Blackstone Rangers, and the Blackstone Rangers were created in the 60s.
Blackstone Rangers, I've never heard of them.
It was a fairly big gang. It was like the Bloods and the Crips.
It's a gang, okay.
Gang, yeah,
Okay.
gang. It's a black gang. And it was assisted in its development by the University of Chicago. The Chicago wanted the land, and there was a phenomenon. It's a long, long story. It was something like 37 parts. It was submitted for a Pulitzer by the newspaper. But it was essentially some slum clearance. So there was a lot of work that went into that story. They sufficiently cleared the area, and so the university actually expanded into the area that the gangs had been ultimately destroyed by having extorted the local merchants and also the people there, drove them out. There's a quote that I'd like to read. It's Leslie Gelb. Are you familiar with Gelb? No. State Department, New York Times editor. He was the secretary. He was the head of the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. And he said at a speech, the principal business of journalism consists of recording what people with power say. I'll say that again. The principal business of journalism consists of recording what people with power say. And the other aspect of this is the power of the media resides in its power to choose which ideas to present. You know, I think that's pretty much the operating principle of all newspapers today, where you go after, say, Horrigan, you go after the leaders, but the general population, with regard to any particular phenomenon, are dismissed because the principal business of journalism consists of recording what people with power have to say. And if you learn that, you can stay in the business and matriculate up. If you don't learn it, you're pushed out and then you become something else.
Considered frivolous and not important.
Being a stenographer for the people in power. When I worked with a really great journalist who said, okay, the budget's out. The county executive has put his budget out. The mayor has put his budget out. Today we just report it. He did not do that. He took it, he went through every piece of information. He said, you know what? This is not what he says it is. And do you know where the money is really going and who's getting the money? He did not accept it at face value. Now that was true investigative journalism.
Wow.
And if they're not willing to go the extra mile beyond what is just told them, then they're just simply stenographers, that's all. You can't call them anything else. It's junk food news.
Okay, we have a caller. You ready? Okay, good morning, caller.
This is Linda Spalding. How are you?
Linda, good morning. How are you? Welcome to Chautauqua Sunrise.
I know. Well, this is a senior calling in. And for me, it's Chautauqua Sunset.
Oh, come on. Come on now.
Well,
this show is for everybody now.
Now, you know what Doug used to say? There's nothing so much, and it may be a quote from somebody, there's nothing so much resembles a sunrise as a sunset. And isn't that true?
Yeah, it's like reversed.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, I just wanted to say good morning. I haven't taken my dogs out. I've been very lethargic. But it's great to see you on the show, Karen and Roy.
Oh, thank you.
Good. That's good you're calling in. We love to hear from Doug, even if it's through you.
And I do want to mention that we do have senior employment services
Absolutely.
with the Chautauqua County Office for the Aging, and the number is 753-4471.
Okay, we'll pop that up here in a minute.
Yeah.
Linda, what kind of opportunities do you have lately? Can you give us a quick list of what
we do have our computer training, which is free. It's entry level. It's at the Dunkirk Free Library on Central, at the Patterson Library in Westfield, at the Jamestown County Office for the Aging, and we are opening up a new training site.
Ooh.
Thank you for a grant that we have received.
Good.
At the Brockton Library. So we've got these sites going. We also have one in Olean too. So it's free for everybody. It's entry level. It's done one-on-one. Generations online with a peer coach with the person the whole time to answer questions and assist. It's much better than a classroom setting where you have to keep up with other students and as an instructor you work at your own pace. We've trained well over 1,000 people.
Okay, Linda, how do you define senior?
Well, how do I define that?
In other words, how old do you have to be to take the...
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me a philosophical question.
No. Okay. In other words, people say, well, I'm 64. I'm not old enough.
Anybody who is 55.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
I've been a senior for a long time.
Yeah, maybe. And for the computer training, you could be 50,
Sure.
Actually, a mature worker defined by the Department of Labor is anybody who is 40 years of age or over.
Wow. I've been a mature worker for a long time. The point I wanted to make is that this is not just for people of just a very narrow age.
And there are no eligibility guidelines.
Oh,
there's no income eligibility, nothing. It's for people in the community, and it is a wonderful community service.
Sure.
And individuals who are 60 years of age and over are the fastest rising population for computer training.
Do you teach journalism?
Do I teach it? No. At the class, no. They refer people on to everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also have job openings with our senior employment program.
Like what? What could they do?
Well, anything they want to do. What do you want to be when you grow up? That's what I say to them.
Oh, so you can help them, steer them in those directions.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, we do that. We do career counseling.
Okay.
But at this age, people know pretty much as a rule, what they'd like to do. And sometimes they want career changes.
Sure.
I had one man who was an accomplished individual with doctorates and everything, and he came to me, he said, Linda, I don't want to think anymore. And he wanted to be a maintenance cleaning person. And he was terrific. They wanted to make him a supervisor at this particular service. And he said, no, I just want to do this. So it all depends. I always ask people when they come to me for the first time, if you had your choice of any job in the world, what would you want to be doing now?
Gosh. Well, I have to think about that one.
Well, you have a great and wonderful weekend.
Yes, thanks, Linda, for calling.
And my little boys are chafing at the bit to go out in the sunshine.
Can't hold them up too long now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, Linda, for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, folks, see how easy that was? You just call the phone number or Twitter us or Facebook, and we'll take your calls, and they'll magically send me a message here. Oh, I do have something here. I'll have to read this while my guests are talking here. I have to get caught up on my Twittering. But Karen, you were going to say something. I know you're ready to go.
Yeah, well, I always wave a book around of some sort or another. And this was one of our, we're proteges of Ben Bendikian, and he wrote this book back in '83, and then he rewrote it. And when he first wrote it, he said there are 50 corporations that run us, that manage 90% of the news. His fourth edition said, well, there's now 12. Well, I have to update this. There are now 6 corporations who control 90% of everything that we see.
6.
And 6.
All right, well, name them.
Okay, there's Comcast,
okay.
News Corp,
All right.
Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. And then below those, you can read off the multitude of things that they control.
All right, well, where does, for instance, CNN fall? Where are they?
CNN is under Time Warner, and CNN has a really wonderful anecdote. Back when we started this war in the Middle East, they broadcast one version to the world.
This is the Iraq War, you're talking?
The Iraq War, yes. Well, it's extended to everywhere.
Yeah.
And they got so much feedback from the rest of the world. The rest of the world said, you're not reporting the full story. You're simply doing jingoism. You're only reporting a nationalistic perspective that your leaders want.
Jingoism.
Jingoism.
What is that?
That means it's primarily for your national and your leadership interests to be presented.
Okay.
To never analyze the background behind the story. The background behind the story tells what the world should know. Well, the rest of the world said, we are not interested in this junk food news. So the head of CNN made 2 news departments, one to report the real in-depth story for the world, and then one for the American viewers because they wouldn't have access. You don't have access to sources if you criticize them. It is a predicament.
They close the door.
They shut the door. If you cannot always say, Tom Reed is the most wonderful representative of our people in this area, he's not going to give you an interview the next time. So it makes it really difficult for newspapers. But in any case, CNN has that history, and they are owned by Time Warner. Time Warner also owns HBO, Time Magazine, and Warner Brothers.
Now, what about Fox? We always hear these 2. One's more liberal, one's more conservative. Where's Fox?
Fox is under News Corp, and it's Wall Street Journal, New York Post, and then the 3 the top main newspapers in the country, News Corp owns.
Wow. And so they're owned by some pretty big heavy hitters or corporations that own boards of directors, and they're probably pressured by...
Well, look at Clear Channel. Do you remember who owns Clear Channel?
I don't even know what Clear Channel is.
Bain is Mitt Romney.
Oh.
So 80% of our radio, playlists at least, most of the stuff, 80% comes through Clear Channel, and Mitt Romney had a lot to do with that. I don't know if he does anymore, but he certainly got to run for president.
This is why I wanted you on the show, because I'm just sitting here, I'm just absorbing all this. I'm hearing things I've never heard before. I love this.
One of the difficulties with all this centralized ownership is the fact that you get very limited choices in order to understand the world. And one of the things that I'm familiar with the notion of Tavistock Institute. Tavistock Institute was a British institute that essentially engineered the British into the First World War, and subsequently been doing that all along. And they developed the notion of the Reesian choice, which is to say to the public, there are only 2 choices here. with regard to fracking. You can frack, and that's great. You're going to have energy, maybe, or you can have solar and wind. So you've got two choices. But what has been going on that's not part of the media is that there's a huge number of suppressed technologies. Those suppressed technologies have been, people have been killed with their ideas, or they've been suppressed in their ideas. And those technologies are quickly incorporated into the military or one aspect of secret services. And the public is essentially left without any alternative. So they say, okay, wind and solar. If they don't like wind and solar, they're stuck with fracking, and so the corporate agenda moves on. And that's just one instance of how the media is defining and confining the area of discussion, Now, and that's why.
You said something very interesting, if I can go back a little bit. You said you don't have a TV. And I got a TV, but you know what's on my TV most of the day? I put on Zen or certain kinds of music just to fill the house with music. The dog likes it too. And or new age music, that's what I listen to. And I get so frustrated watching commercials. Ask my wife, I'm always yelling at the TV. Much like yourself, where you watch a story and go, this can't be right. There's got to be more to this, or whatever. Yeah. Or like you say, they'll cover something forever. They'll beat it to death, and then it's gone. Yeah. Yeah. And you don't know what's the rest of the story. Where'd it go?
Right. Well, C-SPAN wasn't half bad because you got to go to the source, and that's what I would call true journalism or investigative journalism. Go to the source, and then you have the facts. Don't take somebody's word for it. Always go wherever you can find the truth from the very beginning. And we're seeing with this disparity in our wealth in our society that this aspect now has negative implications. Our freedom of the press has now gone to the point where it just represents a very small portion of our society, and the negative implications on the political and cultural and social fabric of this civilization are becoming apparent. And we have to be aware that we can find other sources of information, and I'd like to refer to the internet, because I think the internet provides alternatives and many different viewpoints, and then we can decide for ourselves. And we need to start exercising our brains a little more and not just letting somebody tell us what to think.
Yeah, if somebody were to look at all my friends on Facebook, for instance, they'd say, you got quite a collection. I'll friend anybody that I feel comfortable friending, and I have from all different perspectives. I want to know what people that are very left feel, or I want to hear the same side from the right, or people that are coming from Europe. It's very fascinating to have my relatives over there sharing information to me as they see us from their vantage point. If you just joined us, this is Chautauqua Sunrise. I'm Doc Hamels, and we're talking with Roy and Karen Harvey. Call us if you like. Go ahead.
The internet, like Karen was saying, is a really important, crucial check to the media. And a lot of people have been checking the stories, verifying or not verifying the stories with news outlets like Information Clearinghouse and Global Outlook, and there's just a host of really decent websites that you can check. But my point here is that Joseph Goebbels, the finance minister for Hitler, said that propaganda is only effective until you realize that you're being propagandized. And that's why the internet can provide an alternative to realize that you're being propagandized by, you're being moved into, who are watching, trying to get news, trying to understand the world from television.
Okay, you need to take a breath. We've got just a little bit of time left here, but we had a caller who called in, and so I wanted to share some information. Folks, you can get copies of Channel 5 shows, including this show today with Roy and Karen, Chautauqua Sunrise, by contacting Access Channel 5 at 753-5225, or write to us at P.O. Box 188, Mayville, New York, 14757. And you can get a copy of this if you don't have YouTube. Guys, we're running out of time. We've only got like a minute left, so quick summary.
We have a First Amendment right, freedom of the press, and it has helped us throughout our development, but it's coming to an end as it becomes just a protection for the corporations that are making money from what they call the press. It's no longer there to protect the citizens who advocate for diverse viewpoints. It's there to protect corporate profit-taking. And so don't accept junk food news. Go to the source and find out.
Okay. 1 second. Jeff, I want to just make sure. Are we running out of time? Okay. We're going to have to end it there. I want to thank Roy and Karen Harvey for joining us. I want to do a special thanks for everybody to help produce today's show, starting with Randy Burt, our cameraman, Jeff Zook in our guest description. I don't know what that means. Then you must have a phantom. Chris Burt in engineering, Jeff Zook on our board. I've got Chuck Kelsey, who is the grandfather of Access 5. I'm Doc Hamels. Have a wonderful weekend. We're still working out some of the bugs here. Guys, thanks for showing up today and spending some time. We're going to have to talk some more about this. Most interesting.
Great.
All right, good.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good questions.
Yes.